In the course of exercising my intellect by using translators, the Google Translator, to translate my bio over at Amazon as my Amazon author page into 6 different foreign languages. By doing that and going back and forth, translating it into the foreign language and then translating the foreign language version back into English to see how well I crafted my diction or how poorly I crafted my diction, I realize now that I don't really bother to try to be understood by people when I speak in English, my mother tongue. And when I tried to get back to the source of this problem, I realized I really don't want people to understand me because I don't care whether or not people understand me. And my lack of caring comes about because my mother didn't want to understand me because she didn't want to hear me. She would usually shut me up when I was 4 or 5 years old and saying, "Mothers know best, don't talk back to your mother." And so I created this policy, this automatic reflex action that, or a premise, a belief that I should never bother to speak my mind. So when I finally exploded, when I came back from college a failure, and in my 20s, I exploded with emotional frustration and started to complain about everything that until then I had never bothered to complain about, and I just kept it to myself. And because I waited so long, several decades, nobody believed me. They thought I was schizophrenic. They thought I was out of my mind. And it was partly due to the fact that I didn't bother to be understood when I was complaining. So you see how this becomes a self-fulfilling situation, in that because my mother never wanted to understand me, now everybody has a hard problem understanding me, not just my dead mother. And so it's a lot of work to take my English writing and pass it through Google Translator and then pass that translated product back into English. It takes a lot of work. I've only done one of my books that I self-published on Amazon. Only one did I translate into Spanish, and I had to curtail that process because I kept adding to the text in English, and that meant going over the new edition, and translating that into Spanish and then back into English. And I got so freaking tired of it that I just gave up. And although I added more English text to that particular book, I stopped adding more Spanish text. I just kept it at a version that I could tolerate the workload, and I didn't bother extending it any further to match the English version of that same book. I can't remember the exact title. I want to guess. Well, I know that the image on the front cover, it's 2 hands, one hand reaching down from above, grasping a hand that's reaching up from below, and it's on a white background. So that's the book version that I translated into Spanish, and it's the only one I've done. But now I'm trying to work on my bio page, my author bio page. It's at amazon.com/author/Vinyasi. And I didn't realize that Amazon gives me the facility or the option to add additional biographies in 6 other languages other than just English alone. And the most intriguing one I found was Japanese. I realize now that the Japanese people, their language is so well constructed that it's actually a very logical, flowing language. It's extremely well constructed so that when you translate into Japanese and back into English, it makes so much sense. It even sounds better than the original did in English. It's truly intriguing, but it's true. I mean, English is horrible. We all know how horrible English is. It's the worst language on the planet, and yet it's the de facto standard. It used to be that French was one of the de facto standards of being a universal language, but that was superseded by English. And English is horrible. Oh my God, it's so awful. Now, there is one problem in Japanese I found that I had to contrive trickery to get around. And that is the Google Translator, when it sees the English phrase, we are, or, we are something, it mistranslates it as I am something every time, no matter what it is. We are whatever is I am whatever. It can't tell the difference between the two. It thinks we is I. And so I had to attach that statement to the previous sentence by using the linking word because, and then everything was okay. And another way around it is to say that we are also yada yada. That also helped avoid that trapdoor or pitfall in the Google Translator when translating from English to Japanese. But other than that one little problem, Japanese is like a perfect language. And maybe it's just the fault of Google Translator. I don't know, In any case, it's quite uplifting. It's humorous, but it's also uplifting to be able to see how other people's languages construct their thinking process. And that helps me write a better version of English, to think better in English. So English is truly a sloppy language and allows me to create run-on sentences. It actually encourages it because we have all kinds of, I think they're called prepositions, words like the and of. We have all these that, which. We have all these words that a lot of foreign languages don't have that makes it possible for us to be sloppy in our construct of thought. Because that's what language does. It's a mechanism of the intellect. It has nothing to do with emotions or feelings or empathy. It has nothing to do with seeing the big picture, the Gestalt view of reality. All it cares about is the minuscule details. Probably lawyers are responsible for this, because English, maybe English came out of our use of English came out of the government's, the England's government use of the language in Parliament and lawmakers. I don't know. I'm guessing. Because it just doesn't make any sense when you try to translate into other languages and then back again into English. It starts becoming gobbledygook. If you're a writer like me and are sloppy, basically. But, okay, so I can't, blame it all on the English language, although that's partly at fault. But it's also partly at fault that I was programmed from an early age not to speak my mind, not to share my opinion. Probably out of fear. I suspected it was a fear that my mother had for being a single parent all of a sudden. I don't think she expected to have to raise children on her own. And a lot of women are like that when they leave their husband for whatever reason. Maybe they're being abused or something. But they leave their husband and they're on their own supporting their kids and raising them, and they freak out. And that's exactly what my mother did. She'd come home from work because she never thought, so I grew up in an era in which women did not have to work. The inflationary value of the dollar was low enough that my father could work a blue-collar job and support a family and purchase a home. This is unheard of. This is, the late 40s, after World War II. 1948, they got married. They ran off to Las Vegas, got married, came back to L.A., he got a blue-collar job as a draftsman. You know, he was not trained in engineering of any kind. He wanted to be, but there was no money available for people who chose to avoid World War II by stipulating that, you know, their father is a priest or, you know, a religious figure of some sort, and so consequently they don't believe in war, and so they were put to work. My father was working in the Colorado Rockies building roads. And the difference, though, is that when the war was over, he didn't get a nice package. You know, he just got a boot, a kick out the door. While the GIs coming back from Europe and whatnot got the GI package. You know, they got some financial assistance. But my father got zip, all because he was a pacifist. His father was a pacifist. I'm a pacifist, you know, but, well, somewhat. I used to be a pacifist, unfortunately. I'm not anymore. Or else I wouldn't be pushing free energy into people's faces and harassing them. Literally, I am harassing people by promoting the ideology that free energy is an actuality of electrical engineering and has been so for more than 1.5 centuries. Ever since Oliver Heaviside, I think, is the first person who actually gave recognition in a roundabout way to free energy. It was really Steinmetz who nailed it, but Oliver Heaviside did introduce the idea by how he went about solving, or that he even at all solved, the problem of the transatlantic telegraph cable problem that they were having in the 1880s. Just the fact that he solved it at all introduced the idea that free energy and reactive power are one and the same, not by explicitly stating it as such, but in thinking back over the roots of where does free energy come from. I'd say Oliver Heaviside was the first guy who started us on that tangent away from conventional thinking that free energy is a possibility. In any case, and I think it culminates with Eric Dollard helping us to understand it from a mathematical or engineering point of view. I mean, he's so good at simplifying complicated things into layman's terms that I was able to fashion my own examples from common day experiences to exemplify how free energy functions from an electrical engineer standpoint, but phrased from a layperson's understanding, you know, a simple-minded person's understanding. In any case, so getting back to the main topic, so it's really a good exercise. Unfortunately, it's a tremendous amount of work, and it takes a lot of time, and I do have a lot of time. So maybe I should translate my latest book into 6 foreign languages. Apparently Amazon thinks those 6 are the ones that are most crucial and no others. You know, I mean, it doesn't even consider Hindi. It should, you know, but apparently there's not enough commoners living in India who pay attention to Amazon. So Amazon doesn't provide that when you write your bio on your author page at Amazon. In any case, or Chinese for that matter. They don't provide that option to write your bio in Chinese. But they do provide it for 6 languages other than English, so 7 languages altogether. So English, German, Italian, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Japanese. And so at least that's a beginning. At least from Amazon's standpoint, they think those are the 7 most important languages on the face of this planet. You know, Swahili is not one of them. But in any case, so it's, I don't know, my latest book is 267 pages, and it would be a daunting task to translate it. But, you know, I got nothing else better to do, you know? I'm not simulating free energy circuits anymore, not that I couldn't. I have an idea for one, but I just don't want to bother, you know, because, you know, I don't get feedback from people to encourage me. I'm pretty much a one-man band here, like Charlie Chaplin. I mean, I gotta motivate myself to put in the work, and it's a lot of work to cover all these bases. Do the simulation work, which is a lot of work in and of itself, draw conclusions, write essays, amass enough material from essays to write a book, and then self-publish the book, and then translate it. Oh my God, it's like one more step in the process. I didn't realize there's so much work involved. But you know what? I got the rest of my life ahead of me, so what's stopping me, I think I would start with Japanese, because that's the most intriguing of those 6 foreign languages, foreign to me anyway. I was amazed that once I got done with all the languages up to Portuguese, that when I got to Portuguese, I didn't have to change anything. Everything was just fine. But German was quite a task. It posed a few problems, and I had to reword things in English in order to get it to translate into German and then back into English again and make any sense. German was problematic. Anyway, so that's my latest foray into writing. I don't do promotions so much, and not too many people buy my books on Amazon. And I think it is because of the element of harassment. If I promote my books, I'm basically harassing people. My latest book is taking the position that the reason why we have what we have, the patent office refuses to look at free energy devices, physics, because they take the position that physics takes, that, conservation of energy, it's not possible to have free energy under the circumstances. So in my bio, I try to encapsulate that error of judgment, to give a synopsis of what angle of approach I'm taking in my latest book, is that I'm scathingly criticizing physics for taking this approach, because it's the foundation of our commonsensical way of life. Whether or not we understand it, we all believe that physics is trustworthy in guiding our little feet in the correct direction of thinking and reasoning on the subject of energy. And of course it's not. It's run by corporate interests that want to maintain our, if I have to use the words of Eisenhower in his farewell address, our, what did he call it? Our military-industrial complex. It's a vested interest in which we have integrated our military into our commercial domain, which occurred during World War II when we converted industry into the production of tanks and planes and ammunition and whatnot. That fully integrated the military into our society, so that now it's a part of our beliefs to think in a militaristic fashion. So that's really to blame for why physics, why we are convinced that physics is the de facto religion when it comes to dogma and creed concerning our understanding or beliefs, our presumptive style of thinking on the topic of energy. Because if we can't think about energy correctly, there's no way we're going to think about free energy any better than the way we think about energy in general. And that's our problem. Now, you will get people to admit in little crevices, tucked away, hidden in places, that conservation of energy is not a law applicable under all circumstances. It is merely a condition, not a universal law. And other prefaces similar to that one. But you don't find it too often, unfortunately, that people will come out and speak that in a very fluid and easy manner, indicating to the listener that they're not afraid of being ridiculed or losing their position in the job market. They know from their professional experience that conservation of energy does not apply to all energy. all energetic situations. Anyway, for me, it's an uphill battle because the common sense is against that special sense, and it's unfortunate. It's true, it is a special sense, but, why is it special? What makes it so special? Well, our corporate interests, our public policy, which become public policy, and then our public policy becomes our community values, and then it becomes our personal beliefs. So it's really a shame, but that's, literally the tail is wagging the dog. It used to be, in the days of Davy Crockett, in the days of David Crockett, when he was congressman, public opinion molded the opinion of congressmen, because that's their job, right? They're supposed to be servants of the public, but now it's the other way around. We are the servants of our leaders, and our leaders are not in charge. They're the servants of corporate interests, who in turn are not in charge. They're the servants of our militaristic interests at preserving our way of life. So it's really our military that dictates everything in the United States of America. It literally dictates everything. And that shows we are at the tail end of our existence. We are literally holding onto a string, a mere thread of credibility, because nothing else is propping us up except our military dominance of this planet. It's the only thing holding up our country, and that's a shame and a pity that we've dug such a deep hole for ourselves that's how willing we are to go so deep, is to throw away everything else except our military domination of the planet, and not bother to cultivate any other value other than that one, so that when it comes time to compete, just to give you an example, when it comes time to defend your position when your child is taken from you, and you have to go into court and convince the court that you are worthy of consideration to have your child returned to you, it's pretty difficult, because the way the system of child confiscation is set up is that winning means everything, and it becomes the new morality. So that if you are a loser, if you lost your child to child confiscation, then there's something wrong with you. You're immoral, because why else would you lose your son, or your daughter? There must be something wrong with you. You must be immoral. There must be some defect in your character that would cause you to be considered to be not a good parent, to such a degree that your child should be taken from you before you get to defend yourself. It makes it really hard to defend yourself after the fact. And meanwhile, your child's foster parent is using every trick in the book to win, and in my case, it was easy. My son's foster mother was told by the supervisor of our social worker to use pride, offend me. And it was so easy to offend me, because I felt it was so beneath me to have my son taken from me, that it was so easy to offend me, to the point that I stopped showing up at the child visitation sessions. That led the court to believe, I'm not interested in getting my son back. Okay. So he doesn't want it. Then he doesn't want to keep his son. And it was just because I was offended. Just because I was so easy to be offended. Which has nothing to do with parenting skills. It has to do with your social skills, in a highly competitive arena, which I never thought would have to be the case, that I would find myself competing neck and neck with other adults over keeping my son to myself. I didn't think anybody would, create this sort of condition that I would have to fight for something that has nothing to do with my parenting skills. It has to do with my ability to fight people. What does that have to do with parenting? And then I should turn to my child and fight with my child? And dominate my child? I mean, is that the role of the parent? I thought the role of the parent was to guide the child, not dominate the child. And to prevent the child from competing with the parent. To create the right conditions so that I never have to dominate my child in order to guide my child. Well, I can't prevent society from fighting with me. And so I was really caught off guard. See, I'm a big believer in prevention as being the only correct way to solve anything is to prevent the problem from arising in the first place. It's the most efficient, and you never have to fight anyone. You never have to defend yourself. The problem never arises in the first place because you set it up that way. But you can't set it up for other people, other adults who can do as they please. And even adolescents feel like they can do as they please. So it's kind of already a little too late by that time. It has to be a pre-adolescent child that you have to deal with to set up preventative measures to prevent a situation from arising in which they rebel, or they do something wrong. Anywho, it was a losing proposition. I lost my son, and there was no way I could get him back because my whole way of going about solving problems, I never first saw the situation as it arose, as it ended up becoming. It was really quite an upsetting situation, to put it mildly. And I never really have recovered because I still think it's ridiculous to spend so much energy in defending yourself against other people. Yet, that's exactly what I do when I promote free energy. I create arguments. But see, no, I don't. When somebody catches me off guard with an argument I've never heard before, then all I can do is walk away and figure out what's wrong with their point of view. What is it about their point of view that they don't understand? What do I need to understand about their error of judgment so that I can prevent that from ever happening again in the future, so that I can present my argument for free energy in such a way that I never have to deal with surprises anymore, because I know all their arguments. They're like a bunch of robots. They're very predictable. You can learn all their arguments, the standard way of thinking about free energy, and you can prevent them from arising in the first place by picking the most crucial argument right up front and attack that one. And it's the conservation of energy. That's the one that has to be attacked. And it's a waste of time to deal with anything else. Anyway. But translation is a very interesting thing. When I present my arguments, I have to be understood, right? Especially by antagonists who don't believe a word I'm saying. So it really helps to translate into foreign languages. It really has helped me. And I hope, maybe I don't need to be understood. Maybe it's a waste of time to promote myself and be understood. But if I have nothing else better to do, and if it continues to amuse me, because I really have to do it in small bits, because it is a tremendous amount of work to translate back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, each time revising my English versions so that when I get the returned English translation from the foreign language back into the English language, it still makes sense. It still looks the way I originally wrote it, more or less, the way I intended to be understood. Anywho, enough said.